Welcome to the next episode of Burning Boxes and Breaking Chains, the accountability podcast. And today we'll be talking about It's My Fault and holding ourselves accountable. And joining me today is my good buddy, Mark Cosby, who I met as a National Speakers Association. Mark is from St. Louis, Missouri, and he's a veteran. And now he's a veteran in Scrubs working in a trauma center in the hospital. He's also a Spirit Award winner from the National Speakers Association, as well as a certified coach there as well. So y'all help me welcome Mark Cosby. Welcome, brother.
Hey, brother. How you doing, brother Jeff?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
Good to see you. Always good to see you.
So, we've talked about this, and this podcast is about accountability. And, I had sent you a couple of questions as well. And one of the things that I want to ask you today to get this thing started, and guys, Mark is also big on the mindset reset. It's all about what's going on in your mind, and that's where you can hold yourself accountable as well. So how can somebody identify when negative thinking is affecting their mood and their productivity?
Well, it's simple. When a person has a negative mindset, automatically their productivity is going to drop. Automatically, people around them are going to sense that negative mindset. So people are going to be kind of standoffish and not want to be around that person. So in order to identify that as a person, the person themselves have to look in the mirror and say, what is wrong with me? If 10 people out of 10 people say, watch yourself around this person, the problem is the person and not those 10 people. So it takes, in the accountability sense, a person has to look in the mirror and say, well, if all these people are saying is about me, then it must be me. And you have to bite the bullet, look in the mirror and say, you know what, I need to change. And that comes from having a change in your mind. It's basically resetting your mindset. And you have to want to be better than you were the day before. Simply
There, I think, is a key thing right there is you have to want to be better. I think there's some people I have literally come across that they really don't view it as their fault. They don't want to get better. And sometimes, misery loves company is the old saying out there. And I tell people a lot of times too, when you're having a pity party, the problem with that kind of party for me is you're generally the only one that shows up. And I don't want no part of that kind of party, man.
Not at all. Not at all.
You said that about the 10 people. I was saying on a different episode that my grandfather used to say, if one person calls you an ass, you can ignore them. So 10 or 12 call you an ass, time to buy a saddle. There's something to that then, brother.
That's deep. That's deep.
There's something to it. Then if 10 or 12 are calling you the same thing, you better look in the mirror and take some accountability there and start making some changes.
You're right.
So what are some practical steps somebody can take in being able to recognize that and start changing it?
So here's the thing. We can't stop our thoughts from happening, right? Thoughts are going to happen. We have somewhere between 90,000 thoughts a day. And out of that 90,000, 80 to 90,000, 95% of those thoughts are repetitive, meaning you're thinking the same thing over and over again all day long. So when a negative thought appears, acknowledge that negative thought, right? Then you have to immediately categorize it or kick it out. Categorize like, okay, it's a negative thought. I'm gonna deal with that later. Or it's a negative thought. I don't want that thought at all. I'm gonna get it out of here. Purge it out of your mind. Switch to thinking about something more positive. Like, for example, your first child being born. That's a great mindset reset right there. When you have a negative thought, I guarantee you, if you sit down and talk to 10 out of 10, that's our favorite word, that's our favorite number today, 10 people in a prison system, sitting in someone's prison right now, they would tell you, if I just would have thought things through first, if I had a different thought in my mind, if I would have just been less emotional, I won't be here right now. I guarantee you can put money on that. You can take that to the bank, brother, that when that thought comes in, you have to acknowledge it, because you can't not acknowledge it, because it's a thought. You can't stop thoughts from happening. Get that thought in your head, get it out of your head as quickly as possible. Think of something different, think of something happy. Go to your happy place, as people always say. Go to your zen place or your or whatever, and get that thought out of your head, because they're prevalent.
Yeah. Hey, I hear you. It's funny you say it because I saw a thing the other day that said we live in our head more than any place else in this world. The thoughts
Yeah,
going through our head, and the
yeah,
fact is, instead of letting negative thoughts in there, furnish that thing with some positive thoughts, and that's a choice. It's up to you is to think positively about it. I tell people all
yes.
the time that the fact is that you're in charge of four things. You're only in control of four things: is what you think, how you
Hmm.
feel, what you say, and what you do, and that's it. And that acceptance in those four realms, and being no matter what the situation is, I'm in charge of how I think about it. And people
Right.
realize they need to realize and own up to the fact their feelings come from their thoughts. And
Yes,
the
I
fact
agree.
that that's exactly where they come from. So when you
Yeah.
say people tell me, "Oh, they made me mad," no, they didn't.
No.
You know, those thoughts made you mad. And I tell them, if you peel that onion back, most of the time that something happened that made you sad or hurt your feelings, and you don't want to deal with that. So it's easier to run to anger, and that pushes people away. Then they
Hmm.
don't hurt your feelings anymore.
Right.
You
Right.
know.
Yeah. Great point. Great point indeed.
So tell me now, in the accountability part of this, how is that something you can apply in your job? As a trauma technician or surgical technician that you're doing now.
Well, funny story. Let me tell you about this. This was something that I think most people would have probably left the program and left the school for that. I was probably like, yeah, I was probably like 2 months into no, as a matter of fact, yeah, that was we had finished that didactic phase, meaning we finished the classroom work, we done all our tests and all that stuff. We were in a clinical phase. I think it was 2 weeks into clinical. We were in the main operating room getting ready for a huge case, humongous case. So the other techs that were there, they were seasoned techs. These guys were been techs probably about 4 or 5 years at the time. Brand new. I'm a brand new student coming up to the clinical setting for the first time. I mean, and this is so embarrassing to me, and I felt a lot of shame about this not me early on until I realized that hey, that happened. I owned up to it and I moved on from it. And then I stayed on at that hospital after I graduated from the program. So we were getting set up for this big case, right? And so we were opening up all the sterile instruments, put them on the back table. So you have two tables. You have a back table and you have what's called a Mayo stand. The Mayo stand is closest to the patient with the surgeons, and you right there next to the surgeon and the first assistant, and you pass the instruments from there. The back table is where you have all your other stuff related to that case, meaning sutures, staples, and all that stuff you're going to use to close the patient up with. So as we were opening everything up, um, someone gave me a bunch of sutures, a bunch of threads to tie the patient up, to suit the patient up at the end of the case. So I was like, okay, where do you want me to put them? They said, just put them on the back table. I took those things and just threw them on the back table. Now, you have to, they come in sterile packages, right? You have to peel them out of the package and then put them on the back table because the inner package is sterile, the outer package isn't.
Mm-hmm.
So but as soon as the sutures hit the back table, everybody turned around. It was like in slow motion. They were like, no. And so they landed on the back table. And I'm sitting there like, what? I said, you told me to put them up there. They said, yes, I did. But you have to open them first. You know, that Snickers commercial. Like you want
Oh,
to get
the outer package not being sterile. Now you've contaminated the whole table.
the whole table
Wow.
had to be broken down. Everything had to be brought. We had to call downstairs to SPD, sterile processing department, get all the instrument sets brought back up. Everything needed that case back up. It delayed the case. The surgeon came to find out who did it. He came to me. He's like, Professor Cosby, what happened? And at that point, I could have blamed, oh, well, Professor Dean told me just put him on the back table. But I took my lumps because I was raised by two parents from the South, from Mississippi, right? And you own up to your mistakes, you get your ass kicked, and then you move on, right?
Yep.
Because you learn from the lesson. I told him, I said, sir, he was executive officer of the this program too of the hospital, the XO, that's second in charge, right? And I was like, sir, it's my fault. I said, I failed to open the packages up and I threw them on the back table. This is my first couple of weeks in clinicals, my first week in clinicals. And he's like, you know what, Professor Cosby, it's okay. The fact that you owned up to it, it's okay. And they were going to write me up and everything. And XO was like, nope, honest mistake. Do not write him up. He owned up to it. He took accountability for it. And then once I stayed on and I got good at my job, the XO was like requested, is Professor Cosby today? I want to work with Professor Cosby. I want to score my cases. And I learned so much under that man. It was unreal. Captain Brown, I'll never forget him as long as I live.
That's awesome,
so
man. Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's the thing,
moment.
when you recognize it, when you take some accountability there and you recognize that and you just own up to it right there on the spot, and sometimes it could cost you other things, but the best thing in the integrity portion, that's what they say about character integrity, is what you're doing when nobody else is watching.
That's right.
You take accountability for that, and when you own it, that's one of the huge steps that a lot of people, I think, are fail to realize. Whether it makes you likable or accepted in areas, but doing the right thing is not that hard.
It's not that hard.
Sometimes you got to swallow it, and it may have some consequences behind it, but you got to do the right thing. So what do you think some daily steps that people could take to start recognizing and moving forward to taking accountability if they're not currently doing that?
Well, it's simple as, like I said before, when you make a mistake, and I drive this point home, and I drove this point home to my kids, and I'm driving this point home to my stepson now. It's like when if someone asks you a question about something 3 times, chances are they know the answer to the question. They just want to know if you're going to be mature. And I'm going with this, if you're going to tell the truth or not. So tell the truth, get your butt kicked, take your lumps, get your punishment, whatever, and then move on. Because here's the thing, this is what happens with that. When you do that, people say, okay, well, at least they didn't lie about it. And there's your accountability right there. You start gaining accountability deposits, I call them. You own up to it, tell the truth, get your butt kicked, get your punishment. And then because if they find out later you lied, the penalty is going to be even worse. So what people can do to combat that is, again, whenever a mistake is made, just own up to it and just move on. And the biggest 2 words you can say is, I am sorry. You just say, I am sorry. It won't happen again. And mean that, and then make a conscious effort to not to make the same mistake again. Then it's not a mistake anymore, right? Because if you keep doing it some over and over again, it says a mistake. It's not a mistake. It's intentional, in my opinion.
It's a decision. It's a decision from that point on.
Yes,
you're absolutely right. If you make being able to say you're sorry, but doing something and taking steps to make sure it doesn't happen again, lends some credibility to the I'm sorry.
Sir.
And it's like I tell people all the time, your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. Exactly. You're continually saying, I'm sorry, and you're not changing it. That's your actions. That's what I'm watching.
Right.
So, right. That's a decision. That's no longer a mistake.
No,
I thought that something just popped in my head, though, back to the issue with the sutures on the table. To quote the infamous Jeff Foxworthy, bet you won't do that no more.
I tell you what, and I tell that story when I became an instructor. Yeah, I went on to become an instructor as well. I told my students that story, and there was a point I drove home, especially when we go into clinic. Like the week before we go into clinic, I was like, whatever you do, don't do a Cosby. And they were like, what's a Cosby, right? I'm going to tell you what a Cosby is. Yeah, and once I told them that, they were cognizant of that, and they were like, they weren't walking on eggshells. They were very aware going to that clinical setting, because that's a lot of pressure in this clinical setting, in the operating room, a major operating room. Matter of fact, we had 16 rooms in that OR, and that was incredible. So yeah, a lot of pressure, lots of pressure.
Well, that's the thing. You talk about the accountability and you owning the mistakes. So one time with a job, selling air conditioning equipment years ago, I had an engineer that we did a design for him, and he was actually doing a small hospital out in New Mexico. And he called me one day and he said, man, I need your help. He said, they gave me the wrong stats on the MRI machine, and I didn't put enough air conditioning in there. He said, I'm going to have to buy more out of my pocket because can you help me get the price down? I said, absolutely.
Right.
He called me and said, hey, I need you to, this is y'all's fault. I don't have enough. Don't blame me for your mistake, man.
Right.
You call me and just own up to it, fess up, and I will bend over backwards to help you when you say I need help.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to deflect and everything else, which a lot of people do, they deflect that responsibility to somebody else. And sometimes it's like, you're not doing the right thing here, man. And
Right.
so
Definitely not.
to me, that's the thing is you can walk and hold your head up high when you hold yourself accountable.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And
And feel good about
look
it.
people in the eye, absolutely. And look people in the
Yeah.
eye when you shake their hands, and you know who you are as a person. That was the
Yeah.
thing. I did a talk one time. I asked people about being a responsible person. Everybody's like, yeah, in the crew. I said, you pay bills on time? Yep. I said, and this is and it's going to be a recurring theme on the podcast because it's one of my pet peeves. Do you put the shopping cart back when you go to Costco? And I hear groans in the room. I said, yeah, see, you're not telling yourself the truth. You're not that responsible. You got to hold yourself accountable. You went and picked that thing up at the store. Either put it back in the corral or take it back up there.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, it's about 4:30 in the afternoon here. If I were to go up to Costco right now, there are shopping carts all over that parking lot.
Oh yeah, especially this time of year.
Oh yeah, and that's the key thing to me. It's not just a shopping cart. That's just a metaphor that I use. But if you can't take care of the small things, how in the world do you think you can be accountable for the big things?
Right, exactly.
And sometimes you do it just because it makes you feel good. Because you're doing the right thing. That you didn't hire them people to work for you.
Exactly.
And they're not your mama either. They ain't, you ain't 2 years old. They don't have to run around and clean up behind you. Pick up your own stuff.
We both live here in Florida, and I think about those poor lot attendants and those guys out there. And you see those carts are like a mile long, and it's like, just take the cart back because these guys got it. One day I saw a cart way on the other side of the parking lot. I'm like, my God, this guy has to walk all the way down there. So I make it a point, and sometimes I'll bring another cart to the corral too to help them out. It's like, man, because put yourself in that situation, put yourself in those guys' shoes. It's a long day, and they're ready to go home, and it's 700 degrees outside, or it's raining. Worse yet, it's raining, and they got to gather up all those cars and push them underneath that bay. That's just me. I guess that's why I'm in the medical field. I chose that medical field because I just care for other people in a certain regard.
It's not just that, being accountable for yourself too, just in society as a whole, being able to hold doors for people, be kind to people when you see them, hold them a spot, if you need to sometimes. I don't know if you ever heard it was funny one time. Have you ever heard of Jerry Clower? He did the thing. He did a talk. You need to look him up, man. He's from Mississippi. Yep, he is from Mississippi. And he talked about running into the she-coon of women livers one time. And I ran into one time in California. I was on the shuttle bus. She-coon of women livers. I mean, the she-coon will tear you up now. You know what that's about. But I was on a shuttle bus going from the airport to a rental car station. And the place was packed. It was packed. And being raised in the South, this lady stepped on the bus and there was no place for her to sit. So I stood up and offered her my seat. And she said, no. She said, sit down. I said, ma'am, my grandmother's not going to roll over in her grave and keep me up tonight now. I said, please sit down. She refused. She flat refused to sit down. I said, well, if you ain't sitting, neither am I. I stood up there all the way over there, but sometimes doing the right thing, being kind and considerate to people, whether it's elderly or ladies or whatever, even kids, being kind and considerate out there is something that you can do in holding yourself accountable to just be a better human being.
Yes.
And today I think that's sorely lacking in our society. People
really
are always being not only mean, but just discounting people as a whole, And I was talking yesterday on the podcast or a webinar I did for the SCORE administration. You never know what people are going through. You never do.
Yeah.
I mean, and I still to this day will talk bad to somebody if they're zooming through traffic and cut me off. But you think about it, you're talking about that mindset reset. I think sometimes I say, hopefully everything's okay. Hopefully he's not rushing to find his child in an emergency room somewhere they got an accident. I don't know what's going on in that person's life. So what right do I have to judge them for that? Because I don't know what's going on with them.
Really don't. We really
You
don't.
know?
You know, there's a saying that everyone is going through a fight club, and we don't talk about Fight Club. You know, everyone's
Yeah.
going through it. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, everyone's going
You
through
know,
it.
and I tell people because, me being a bit of a comedian sometimes too, sometimes I laugh, I crack myself up, but I tell them, say, you never criticize, condemn, or complain about somebody until you walk a mile in their shoes.
Hmm.
Then it's okay because they're a mile away and they're barefoot.
That's awesome. I love it. That's a good one, man. I
You know,
like that a lot.
you gotta have a sense of humor in this world, man. Because it's funny. I tell people, don't take life too seriously. I said, you ain't getting out of here alive.
No, I'm telling you that. Yeah, you know, you're right. People, it'll drive you crazy if you try to be serious all the time. You have to laugh about things. You
I
have to
can't.
have a light humor about something, and that too, that falls in line with the mindset reset. You know, everything you have to reset your mind every single time. You know, I don't know how many times a day I reset my mindset because you have to, especially when I'm working in the medical field, back in the medical field now. I get rid of one patient, send one patient home, press the reset button because I got a new patient coming in and they have a new set of problems. Me and the doctors have to figure out how to solve and send this patient home. Mindset reset. That patient's gone, another one comes in. Mindset reset. It's a simple process. It really is. And you have to be, like you said, you have to be light on your feet. You have to have humor in the situation. And life is uncertain. I don't like to say that life is short. I like to say life is uncertain because we never know what's going to come around the corner. We never
Oh,
know what diagnosis you're going to get. We don't know what anything can happen at this point, and we just have to be, you know, just have to be living life and in the present. You know what I'm saying?
yep. As Tim McGraw's got a song called "Live Like You're Dying." Go skydiving. I said, nope. I can do other things, and get to experience the joy of today without that, or
Yeah,
get, or he said, or taking getting 4 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. I said, nope, ain't doing that either. I'll go watch him, but I'm not getting on the back of one of them animals, man. I
yeah,
never in my life had a desire to get on the back of a 2,000-pound animal whose sole
man.
purpose in life is to stomp a mud hole in me if he gets me off his back. Nope, not happening.
Yeah.
That,
No, I
that
don't get.
ain't that ain't for me, man. Not my cup of tea. And it might be
Yeah,
somebody's. I enjoy watching them. They are some good athletes to be able to put
yeah.
up with that.
Some
But
bad
that ain't,
boys, man. There's some
yeah,
bad boys
that
out
ain't
there.
for me. You
The original X Games. That's what those guys are. The original extreme sports.
Oh, absolutely.
They
And
really
I do love watching me some barrel racers. Them girls are
yeah,
good, man.
they're good.
And,
They are.
and when life, that's the thing you said just a minute ago about you never know what's coming. Because I
Right.
can guarantee you that a couple of years ago, I went through a whole week of travel and stuff, and was in New York for a couple of days, and flew home and flew to California for an overnight. Had
Mhm.
no idea that as soon as I got home the following week, I was going to spend 9 days in the hospital.
Wow,
You know,
man.
and it's like you never know.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
funny because I was out in Sedona, Arizona earlier this year and went up to Devil's Bridge and
Yeah.
ran into some young ladies up there. They were high school friends and they
Uh-huh.
went up there, hiked all the way up there, and they had gotten together. They lived in different states now, but they got together and went up there.
Yeah.
They passed me on the way down. I said, "Would y'all get your picture?" And they said, "No, we were lazy. We didn't feel like waiting." I'm like,
Mm.
"It's only 20 minutes. You
Wow.
hike 2 miles in, a mile in and a mile up
Yeah.
to get to this thing, and you can't wait 20 minutes?"
Minutes.
And she said, "Well, there's always next year." I said, "No, you can't say
Mm.
that. There is
Nope.
no promises even for tomorrow for anything."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why, years ago, I told my pastor this because he had a talk about it. There's two dates in your life: the day you're born and the day you die.
Mm.
But it
Mm.
all comes down to how you spend that dash in the middle.
Ooh. I
Uh,
like that too.
how do you spend the dash? What's your
Yeah.
dash tell about you? When because people are going to be telling stories about you once you go.
Yeah.
How do you spend that dash?
I just spend that day.
Today, I made a post online this morning because today would have been one of my favorite uncle's 81st birthday.
Mm-hmm.
He passed away back in 2006.
Mm.
And he wanted to go with me one year to Montana because he saw the
Mm.
pictures when I came back the first year I went out there.
Uh-huh.
And found out in August he had cancer. In November, he was gone. So
Wow.
the following May, I took his ashes out there and took him on a hike, ride up
Oh,
the mountain, and scattered his ashes overlooking the ranch.
that's awesome.
So because and even then, back then, the doctor told him when he did some exploratory surgery to see about taking one of the bottom lobes of his lung out. He walked in the room. He said, "I should have never cut this man open." Because
Wow.
he knows what happens when he was already eat up with cancer and letting that oxygen get in there. It wasn't even 3 months and he was gone.
Right. Yeah.
So
My
there's
goodness.
no promises for tomorrow. We got to be today, but be accountable. So make sure, and sometimes just being a good human being is accountability during the day.
Yeah. Definitely.
Making sure you put things back and making sure you hold doors for people. Smile at them when you see them, because sometimes, like you say, you never know what they're going through. So if you see someone without a smile, just give them one of yours. Say good morning, good afternoon.
Yeah.
If they've got one of those ones, especially some of the older ladies now, I see a lot of them out there with the fuchsia colored hair or blue or something. I say, I love your hair.
Yeah.
And just make their day. Acknowledge people. That's one of the key things today is just acknowledge their existence. So you're gonna like this because mine's getting bald in the back and you ain't got any. I ran into this young lady in the Houston airport one time. She was working at Dunkin' Donuts and had just these big, beautiful braids in her hair. I said, "You think I could do that? You could do that with mine?" And she looked at me. She goes, "It'll take a while, but I can make it happen." I said, "I love your attitude."
That's too funny, man.
It was awesome. I mean, she looked at both sides of my head. She said, "It'll take a while, but I can make it happen."
That is too funny.
I like her confidence too. She could take this old short stuff and make it long flowing braids. Man, sign me up.
That's too funny. That is too funny. Hey Jeff, before we go any further, I want to take a moment and send a special shout out to my mentor, Miss Sylvie DiGiusio. Sylvia, I just want to say thank you for all you've done for me and all you've done for our group, the alumni, and the current students you have in your scholarship program. And here's the thing, Jeff, if it weren't for Sylvia, you and I would have never met. Our paths would have never crossed. Isn't that amazing? Because it's unreal how things work out, right? And you just had an interaction with her a couple of months ago, right, at the last chapter meeting?
Absolutely. In November, she showed up as a surprise. I looked up and saw her walk in the door. I said, "Look who's in the house."
Oh, always dressed to the nines, too. Always dressed to the nines, I'm telling you. So.
She was so funny. I got to tell you the story about her in Colorado and Denver when we were out there for the Influence conference last year. She showed up and she had this outfit on, and it was just little mirrors all over the outfit.
Wow.
And I mean, I said, "Sylvia," I said, "you look awesome." And she leaned over, she goes, "This is so heavy." It was all glass. It was real pieces of mirrors on this dress all the way down. I mean, she said it was so heavy. So I think she's retired it for a while, But she is always dressed and always got a phenomenal attitude. And that's the thing. You're talking about holding yourself accountable, and it's my fault. If you're in a bad mood during the day, that's your fault.
Exactly.
I had a young lady at the IMC conference for Maxwell this year. I was honored to be chosen as one of the ambassadors, and I got to greet everybody for all the meals coming and going. And this young lady at the hotel, she said, "How do you show up with such a great attitude so early in the morning?" I said, "That's easy." I said, "I just wake up in the morning and I say, 'Good morning, Lord,' instead of 'Good Lord, it's morning.'"
Oh, man.
I never thought about that. I said, "Yeah, that's first words out your mouth, man. I mean, determines which way you're going."
Drop the mic, man. That's a mic drop right there. Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. I saw a thing the other day that said, in the morning, I say, "Lord, please get in my head before I do."
That's awesome. It's awesome. I tell you, first thing in the morning, my feet hit that bed. Even before I get out of bed, I'm like, "Thank you, Father." Because again, who knows what's going to happen when we close our eyes at night? Or are they going to open back up the next morning? We don't know. Or if they do open back up the next morning, are you going to be healthy? Or are you going to be whole? I mean, I've heard stories of people, matter of fact, people we've operated on, who they said they went to sleep normal and woke up, can move the other half of the body. Had a stroke while they were sleeping. It's like, my goodness, can you imagine that? Waking up in that situation, it'll scare the living daylights out of you. So that's why you just always got to be thankful and always got to be grateful for every single thing, you know?
Dude, that's the thing I saw not too long ago, is that you absolutely cannot be grateful and grumpy at the same time.
Sure
It's physically impossible. You can't do it. Impossible.
Yes, sir.
So if you
Yes,
wake
sir.
up in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, that day is your choice to how to start that day, because that's your responsibility, and it's your fault if you're not. You know,
Exactly.
letting those thoughts grab hold of you and take control and let them run instead of stopping and saying, no, wait a minute. You know, it's to tell people, you get up in the morning, figure out 3 things you're grateful for, and sometimes it's just waking up.
Yeah.
End of the day too. Find 3 things you're grateful for.
Yeah.
And that attitude of gratitude will help you through a lot of bad days, man. A lot of bad days.
Yes,
and
sir.
the fact is, sometimes too, when you're struggling today and you're on a path and you're working towards something, if you think back 10 years ago, you would have killed for that day to be where you are now. You asked for this. You know, and sometimes those struggles are worth it.
Yeah,
you know?
they are.
That's what I was telling somebody the other day. I don't know if you knew this, but when a storm comes out west and over the plains, cattle will run away from the storm. The bison or buffalo run towards the storm because they know it's a shorter distance to get out of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they'll turn and head straight to it because they know if that storm's moving, they're going to get to the other side of it faster going that way.
Wow. Man, that's incredible. Nature, I'm telling you, animals and people call them dumb animals. They're not dumb. They're not dumb. They're not dumb at all.
I tell you what, you say that. I don't know that I trust a person who doesn't like dogs, but I trust dogs who don't like a person.
They know, don't they? They know.
They know,
man.
It's the same thing too. I tell people, and you beware. You know, you have 2 eyes and 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You should look around and pay attention to what's going on around you and listen. You know, people sometimes will tell you what's bothering them, whether it's a customer and what their problems are, and you can help them solve them, and do that more than you talk. You know, because sometimes when you're doing that, you can help them and see what's going on, and realize that they're messed up, and maybe you can help them out.
That's true. That's true. Yes, sir.
Well, my brother, it looks like we are at the top of the hour or the bottom of the hour, whichever way you want to look at it.
That fast already? My goodness.
Keeping these as recordings for 30 minutes for right now, and one day we'll maybe launch into some live so we can take questions from people that may be out there listening to us. Hopefully, we get a lot of that. I know I've gotten a lot of impressions on LinkedIn on the first one that dropped last week. Okay. So actually, that one dropped on what would have been my dad's 85th birthday.
85th birthday, yeah. That's great. So, yeah, that's awesome.
That's why I tell people life is, it may not be short for some of us, but we never know how long it's going to be. So we got to live each day to its fullest. Be nice to people that you see, and make friends everywhere you go.
Everywhere you go, brother. Yeah.
Well, brother, I appreciate it. And everybody else tune in for this episode and the next episode that'll be coming out soon.
Yes, sir. I'm just a phone call away, brother. Let me know when